another episode of A Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Steph.
And I'm Elle.
This week's movie is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. I literally never heard of this movie before.
I feel like I should have. It was very John Carpenter-y.
It was so John Carpenter. Like, literally, when this movie started, it, like, made my soul sing. Because, I mean, we've been pretty fucking serious about Possession Month. And I think that's interesting about us. Because you listen to this podcast for a while, and it's sprinkled. You have some serious shit. Like, we have really poignant moments. Like when we did the It novel. Because I think that delicate themes need to be handled delicately, much like the last episode that Jay and I did. And then you have us like roasting the Conjuring movies and Splice. I feel like that's what we need because horror movies are designed mostly to scare you, but there's no reason that they shouldn't be fun also. And you know what they say, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And we don't do dull boys. We don't really do boys. So this movie, I feel like, was much needed to cut the seriousness of Possession Month. And not everybody feels the same way. Like, there are people who get kicks and giggles out of possession shit. I'm just not one of them.
I thought you were going to say that there are people that take this seriously, and I love that John Carpenter tries really hard with his movies to have like good lore, but this reads like a fucking QAnon conspiracy theory. It is fucking batshit.
Okay, it's so funny that you say that because, and it's not directly related to exactly this plot, but I will say before we get into it that there's some science fiction marriage to religion here that is so hilarious. There's an extraterrestrial element here, and I will say this: we will have to cover Signs at some point on this podcast. After watching Signs, like, my mom has talked about it a lot. It's a movie that's had like a huge impact on me as a horror fan because I definitely consider it to be a horror movie. And my mom has this theory about aliens, and like I mentioned before on this podcast, especially with this month, my family is religious. Her theory is that aliens are actually demons, which is all I could think about while watching this movie.
But Jesus Christ is a star man.
Listen.
He's a fucking space traveler. Come on. Gateway to Alex Jones.
Listen, I watched this movie twice, honestly, back to back, because when I got through with it the first time, I was doing my hair and stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, what? And
See, I just hit Wikipedia right after I watched it. I was like, what in the fuck did I just watch?
I mean, okay.
It's not great. It's not great. I am questioning some of this, like, as I read over. I don't remember that happening, but I don't know. I figure that the consensus of watchers on Wikipedia probably remember it better than me, because I did say what the fuck a lot and probably interrupt the flow of the movie.
There's not really a flow here. Okay. First of all, so John Carpenter, the fucking priest, is Donald motherfucking Pleasant, okay? Also known as Dr. Samuel Loomis from Halloween.
And the physics professor is the grandpa in Three Ninjas and the shopkeeper in Trimmers. And that was very distracting to me because he was playing like a bargain basement Michio Kaku in this. And I was like, what in the fuck is going on here? Couldn't even fix a fucking refrigerator.
They have transformed in this movie, and my notes are a joke. It was all come through shoulder pads and so mustache is a stalker. I think his name is Brian, honestly, but
he is just mustache ride, hot mustache ride. Because okay, she actually looks like a co-ed. She looks like the right age. He looks fucking 40.
So that's incredible. The class is weird. It's like, I'm not even really sure what it is.
It seems like theoretical physics, but it was also like he was trying to do philosophy there with it too. Yeah.
Yes. Which, like, don't do that.
I mean, there is a very big existential crisis in this movie overall.
I guess college does that to you. So, okay, all the interactions between Mustache and Catherine, I wrote her name down. Here's how it seems like men have literally not changed at all. They just have been given access to microphones and podcasts and TikTok.
Yep.
And she seems to be so sick of men and their shit when he says things to her, and he's still got her in bed.
Right? That's what I was like, really, really, no. This movie is written by a man because no. And he was not attractive.
Most of his face was mustache. How can you even tell what he looked like?
It was like the fucking underwear man in Cujo, Tidy Whitey McGee, remember? He's very much that energy.
He's giving Tidy Whitey McGee.
Why are they always like these irresistible Lotharios, which like no woman would actually ever touch them IRL? I would
literally ask every single woman in the movie out before letting Mustache hit.
There are some weird looking Humpty Dumpty motherfuckers in this movie, but every woman is beautiful. Every fucking woman is beautiful in this movie.
Like, you know why? It's because all women are beautiful and men are rocks.
I don't know that is completely true, but it is a running theory that I'm leaning towards. We'll put it that way.
All women are goddesses unless they voted for Trump and J.K. Rowling. We digress. So basically what happened is Father Loomis, I don't remember his name in this movie.
I don't remember any of their names. Like, they gave me nothing in any of these characters to care about, to be honest.
Except for Walter. Walter was the little gay.
But he was also very fucking sexist and fucking racist several times. All of the humor in this movie was ridiculous. It was not humor, it was just being an asshole.
Okay, except for this line. You already know what I'm gonna say. One of the girls has a bruise because she bumped into something, and he said maybe it's nerves. And she's like, you're fucking stupid. You don't get bruises from nerves. And he says, I used to break out all the time as a kid. My doctor told me it was homosexual panic because he's gay.
Okay.
He's so nonchalant about it. Hey, you never know. You just never fucking know. It could be anything. Which is how I would be in a situation like this. I would just be throwing shit out there. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Maybe it's the schizophrenic homeless people outside who won't let us leave this building without killing us with bite parts. So it starts because Father Loomis, Donald Pleasance, he's a priest, and he finds like this glowing green goop in the basement of the church.
And the last guy that knew what the fuck it was died in his sleep, I guess.
Because why not? Why wouldn't he? And sleep is a big theme in this. Like, there's this recurring dream that people seem to have about the front of the church and a dark figure coming out of it, which is apparently not Satan.
Yeah, and they are called the Brotherhood of Sleep, the ones who are watching this vessel that's very Ghostbusters, that kind of vibe. I don't understand why the dude dying suddenly containment's breached.
I'm not actually sure, and I watched it twice. So,
yeah, and then the mouth spooge thing.
That was so fucking gross.
Right? It was like a fucking high pressure jet going into
and they all just walk around with their mouths open, apparently. Right. I just don't do that. That's how you get bugs and shit in there, and the liquid embodiment of Satan. You don't ever want to accidentally let that in. So that's what this glowing green goop ends up being. It's literally the liquid embodiment of Satan. And if it squirts in your mouth, you're possessed.
So the liquid is Satan, and it goes into you and you're possessed by Satan.
Yeah.
But they needed the vessel. She was pregnant with all the water for a while, and then she has to reach through the mirror and pull out the stereotypical devil paw to try to bring him into this reality through the mirror from the antimatter. So
there's two entities here. So the liquid is Satan, and he needs to get Daddy Satan out.
I'm sorry.
So instead of the classic Antichrist ruining the world, and actually Satan's not really involved much. He's like, I've done the heavy lifting, let my kid ruin the world and then do whatever, right? In a classic Christian story. In this one, Satan is actually like the son of the anti-god. And anti-god is what he has to pull through the mirror. But I don't know what the ultimate source of that was. And then Jesus was a space traveler trying to warn Earth that Daddy Satan was coming and like the dangers of green squirt.
What about all the fucking homeless people that are full of bugs, and what's that mechanism?
I was looking it up, and there's really not. Okay, they're like apostates of Satan. I'm talking about this so fucking nonchalantly. If my neighbors can hear me, I'm so sorry. So, like in The Omen, the whole thing is to bring the Antichrist to power so that he can defeat Jesus Christ Superstar. Even though in all Christian doctrine, it's already written that Jesus wins. So, like, it's really pointless.
That's because the Book of Revelations is actually not a fucking look into the future. It's a coded message about what they were going through at the time. 666 is the numerical code for Emperor Nero. It was absolutely contemporary to the time it was written. It is not a prophetic book at all. And a lot of Christian prophecy is based on revelations. Just say it was all about the Romans beating up on the Christians. But yeah, that's the reason why it doesn't make any sense as a prophetic book, because it's not a prophetic book. There's historical context to it all. I like somebody playing with it. Like, this is interesting to me. It reminded me of The Fog, which is another John Carpenter movie, because he had like such a good backstory and such a good lore mechanism, and it just didn't quite connect with the way that the story was put together.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So circling back to where we were before you exploded my brain, the homeless people outside.
Mhm.
They're like apostates to Satan. So, like in The Omen, trying to fulfill Damien's whatever, the devil had people working for him. So, like the nanny who hanged herself at his birthday party, the hellhound, all of those things. It was like that. But it's a very strange thing to use. Schizophrenic homeless people, especially when one of these students points out these people aren't moving at all and they're not doing anything. So, they're not really giving schizophrenic. I don't know why.
Well, you know how they have to be asleep to get this message? Supposedly writing on a tachyon beam, which sounds more from Star Trek than from any horror movie. But we know people with schizophrenia have a different brain structure. Maybe there's something to like being able to communicate. They can't get into your waking consciousness. It could just be a difference in brain waves and being able to communicate with their weird communication method that they have here.
Well, that's fucked up. Like, leave schizophrenic homeless people alone. They're not your pawns or whatever.
For me, there's just so many things in it that they're interesting, but I'm just like, how do you explain that? Especially when they're trying to bring in all of this science talk to try to explain stuff, and then they have
that's why they needed a class full of physicists
and a radiologist.
All unnecessary. Get some seminary students and a microscope and like call it a fucking day. They didn't really do anything sciencey. And also, not to mention, for science people, they're not very fucking smart. Rules. You don't go places by yourself in a creepy place you've never been with glowing fucking green goop that you decide is alive. And someone says, I'm going upstairs. Do you want me to wait for you? You say yes, Susan. So, okay, about Susan. And the reason I remember her name.
They asked where Susan was 100 times.
Right. Okay. Here's what I figured out watching it the second time. Everyone kept saying, who's Susan? And they would say radiologist, glasses. She was reduced to radiologist with glasses after they find out she's married. Because one of the dudes was super interested in her. Like, who is that? And they're like, she's married. Now she's no longer Susan. She's a radiologist with glasses.
More of that sexist bullshit. I want to point out that a legit colleged dude describes the situation as caca before he's murdered by a scissor-wielding bug hobo. I just thought that was a strange choice in dialogue.
Definitely. But as a person who uses caca in my everyday language, sometimes it just be caca.
It took me out of it for a moment.
You know what took me out, honestly? And I couldn't tell you what this man's name is. I wrote him down as Linguini, like from Ratatouille, but Linguini with glasses. When he goes to leave, which buddy system again.
Yeah.
Outside, there's a crucified pigeon, bro. And then the schizophrenic homelesses converge and stab him with the broken bike. And then he's dead.
They're just like not very smart for being so educated.
No, at all. That's why when Susan stayed alone, she got squirted right in the throat. And then
it is a powerful string.
It's literally like super soaker.
I wonder if they took unset green jello and just like super soakered it into their mouths to the actors.
That literally made me so nauseous. So this whole scene was fucking wild. I don't know if it sounded like it to you, but they were playing some really intense music at some point that sounded like doll man music, straight up. And then I noticed after Susan gets possessed, guess what? It's instant LASIK. She doesn't need her fucking glasses anymore. Because you're hot with 20/20 vision when you're possessed. All right, so Susan's possessed, and she's literally squirting shit in people's mouths. Well, it's the gals. I, for one, was like, oh, whoa.
It did seem like they didn't like dicks. No dicks allowed.
Who can blame them? Like, right? girl party always.
It felt a little bit like payback for all the sexist jokes. It was like most of the guys got murdered and the girls just turned into Satan. It's okay.
Homo panic gets locked in a closet, ironically. So while he's in this fucking closet, one of the girls, I forget who, but I think it was blonde ponytail, her skin's fucking melting off. Yeah. She was bloated with liquid and then the liquid like sunk into her soul or something. She's becoming the vessel. And at one point she has this compact mirror and the mirror is the way to get Daddy Satan through. But like it's a compact mirror, you stupid bitch.
Not big enough. Okay, but we're having all this stuff where like time can bend backwards and the future people from 1999, way in the future, can talk back to these people in 1987. But the spatial stuff, no, you can't use a small mirror because Daddy Satan's dick is too big to come through the small mirror. You have to use the big mirror. How come time's so flexible but space isn't?
I wish I had an answer for you, but that mirror just wasn't big enough. So she needed a bigger one. May I just say, it's the physicist students handling shit. Father Loomis didn't do nothing. He actually ran away at one point and he was completely useless until he comes out with an axe and starts speaking spicy Latin, starts chopping shit.
I just thought it was funny when he dipped the first time. I was like, fuck y'all,
he said,
science bitches.
No, absolutely not. He said, when I took my seminary classes, I didn't sign up for this shit. I didn't sign up for alien and fucking green squirty goop. I brush my teeth every day. I will not let that shit in my mouth.
I live a pure life.
Absolutely. I bet that man's never eaten ass. That doesn't do anything because she's just regrowing her limbs. And then he starts to come through the mirror, whatever. They hold hands. And then Catherine sacrifices herself and grabs the girl and jumps in the mirror, and then he throws the axe. And then
in that moment, not the fucking moment when he could have cut Satan's hard red paw off, or like Daddy Satan, I guess, anti-God. Bitch, could you have not gotten courage like 5 seconds earlier before everyone went through the mirror? But
Father Karras would never.
Father Karras would have jumped through himself, dude.
Right.
And then he would have fucked the anti-God in the eye socket, sorry.
But like, she didn't need to jump in there. She really could have just pushed that hoe.
They just needed to destroy the mirror. Would it not have cut Satan's arm off at that point? Like,
I mean, yeah, but like then the green goop still would have existed outside because it would have been in her body, and she was possessed independent of anti-God. He was inside the mirror.
Wasn't there green goop in like all of these people?
But she was the vessel, so they were like touched by.
This to me was like an episode of Supernatural without the boys. I do like that we leaned heavy into those old horror tropes though, of like the learned professor and the wise sage priest. It felt very familiar, but the characters were still just not rounded out enough for me to give a shit.
It's true, but at the same time, I enjoyed this movie.
Yes. Same way I enjoyed John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yes, that movie is fucking shitty, but like
it's trash. I do think that phallic is hot still. I don't know what demented part of my brain. What is wrong?
Dude, I can't say anything. I got scolded by Jay for horny tweeting about Breath of the Wild 2 today. Told him, you're just lucky I didn't tweet the other night about Mortal Kombat. You're lucky I stopped myself. We like what we like. So this movie ends. Anti-God stayed in his cage, or if he got out, which I like. I don't care.
Anti-God in his cage to me sounds so much like when Lucifer's in the cage in hell in Supernatural. I can't.
I know. I love Supernatural.
This is like an extended Supernatural episode with all the peripheral characters that I don't give a shit about.
It's true. My last line in my notes says Brian is going to need therapy. So yeah, his name was Brian, aka Hot Mustache
Ride. Yeah.
So I want to talk about one of my favorite things about this movie. There were many, many, many close calls that made my butthole pucker a little bit. I love close calls, especially ones that like make me twitch. So I wrote 2 down. So when they were trying to get Walter through the wall, it was very close. They almost got him, and I was like sweating, like, get him through the hole, get him through the hole.
Right.
And then there was another scene where, even watching it twice, I can't figure out why the fuck Brian was outside in the first place. But the homelesses were converging on him, and they were trying to lift him up through a window, and he just barely made it. And the whole time, like, like, please lift him.
This wasn't the worst movie I've seen.
No, it was a good time.
Times. Yeah.
It's like how we feel after we watch things. I mean, it's not as goofy by any means, but like when we watch things like Lamageddon and Our Beloved Wolf Cop, it takes the seriousness out of, because I find possession things stressful. It stresses me out. It tenses my body. I reserve those things. It's a good time when I go to like Halloween horror nights and for like, I don't know, things that are just not quite as serious as my mind. This didn't take me there. And like even wrapping up the last episode, at one point I told Jay like, I'm gonna stop because it doesn't feel jokey anymore to me. It's bringing up like
Yeah.
actual church trauma and things like that. But Prince of Darkness is an A+.
I just think that you put John Carpenter on, I will watch any of it, even if it's trash. And there have been some notable
Doozers.
pieces of trash that he has made. Despite all of the things that are annoying, it's just something about it. There was an attempt made at the lore that is interesting enough. There's an atmosphere to it. There's all these things that are done right that make the rest of the sins forgivable.
Yeah, I agree. I like to rate movies on would I watch that shit again. Honestly, there's very few movies I wouldn't watch again, but we have covered some. This I would watch again. I mean, I already watched it twice. I would definitely watch it again. And honestly, probably like soon. Like if I'm being really honest. I've been very busy adulting and then we went dark for a month on the podcast and I just feel like I haven't watched very many horror movies that are like a good time. This is a good time. Well, next week we're sort of shifting back as we end Possession Month with a real doozer, the Evil Dead remake, which, fun fact, at that time, I don't know if it's been surpassed, but at the time that it came out in the movie theater, it used the most fake blood out of any horror movie. And may I remind you that Nightmare on Elm Street had a whole revolving room filled with blood. So if that tells you anything, I hope you're excited. I probably will not watch it again after this. So you can follow this podcast on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at WitchXPudding.
And you can follow me at Nocturnical.
Okay, bye.